Hey everybody, welcome to the video challenges for April. Wow, there are going to be 5 of these and I'm going to be your host for all of them. My name is Wade Acuff and I do know what today is. I'm going to try to refrain from any nonsense, but we may have a few shenanigans. We shall see. But what are we doing today? We're going to get into some hand-drawn let me see if I can pull up an example here. Hand-drawn effects. It's mostly less about the effects, I guess, than it is the process that we're going to be doing. But I did want to show you an example of this. Let me pull that up. Get that ready for you. Okay, so this is an example that we've got. And there's a little bit of a hand-drawn effects going on here. Super simple when we get to it, but there's a little bit of building the process, and we're going to do that now. I provided a sample file, or your files for you. We'll have an After Effects file that just has this info. It has the stock that we're using. It is stock.adobe.com/free, so it will be free for you. If you want to license it. There's the file number you can search for, but we're not really using any of the composition outside of that. And I also provided a Photoshop brush. Interesting. We will get to that. But first, I wanted to make sure, I'm just going to start a new composition while I'm chatting here. I wanted to make sure you guys did know about the write-on effect. Write on. There is a write-on effect that you can access. It is really kind of super simple. If you go into your, just start a solid setting, solid layer, sorry, and then you have to double click into it to get access to your brush and your brush options. You probably will notice I'm using an older version of After Effects. That's due to some technical issues on my end, but it does work in any version. But you want to make sure that the write-on effect, couple of things you remember on this. Write-on effect for duration is set. Make sure it's not constant or single frame or custom. Write-on. And then space, if you want it to be a solid line, then you want to have spacing set to 1%. Otherwise you'll get a dotted line potentially. But it's really cool. I'm working with a Wacom tablet and it does have pressure sensitivity. So what, oh no, it disappeared. I just drew on the thing and it disappeared. Well, it is actually still there. What write-on does is it animates. I'm just going to do a little, it animates for you essentially. Like you're doing the writing motion and it makes that for you. And you can adjust the timing if you want. If I want this to be a lot faster, I can just press U on that solid, and you'll notice there's a brush stroke that's attached to this. And if I wanted that to go really quick, then we can just adjust that timing. Now, the reason this is not what we're going to use the entire time, it's a little, it doesn't work well with other things necessarily beneath it if you wanted to use like a reference video. And I'll get to that in a second. What I do find this useful for, and I'm going to delete this, is stuff like if I wanted to make an arrow, I'm going to move this over. I'm going to hit U to get to the keyframes. But then make sure you're not selected on another brush stroke or the frame itself or the solid itself. You can do like a little fill-in effect, and I'm just working with the Wacom tablet, just scratching that out. Then I can go back in here, pressing U, get to my keyframes, shorten that up a little bit, and now you get a little hand-drawn arrow with it being filled in. Super simple, easy. And what I was talking about before is it's kind of hard to do this kind of thing with reference under it, because if I go to my composition, and I will bring in that skate video, I'll drop that in. It is behind the layer. You can't see it. What you have to do to be able to see it is to go to the effects panel and turn on Paint on Transparent. Boom. Now we do have it. Now the problem is once you double click back into to start painting or drawing, you don't have reference video. So there's not a lot of control. You could do some trial and error and figure out ways to work around that and make that work. But we're going to jump right to the other way to make this work for you. And that is using our good old shape layer and pen tools. Let me check in on chat. What's up, chat? Sean is not playing well with others or something. I'm not sure. Does it work well for type? You could definitely do that right on with type for sure. But moving right along, for our shape layer, make sure you're not selected on anything. Otherwise, you won't get this little star next to the pen shape. You will have a box which indicates a mask. If you do this, you will start making a shape layer immediately. And I'm going to make a little swoop. And I'm going to animate this swoop real quickly, real rough like. Just to show, I'm going to turn this off so we're not distracted. But you can animate this with your contents. One moment, please. Hold, please. Okay. Cycling into contents, you can get to your shapes, and you get to this little toggle down, add trim path. You've definitely seen me use this before if you've been to one of these video challenges. I'm going to add two keyframes to the start and the end. Move down about a frame or a second or so. Add another keyframe, and then I'm going to stretch one out, but I'm going to animate this to where the start is at 0. Is that correct? Yes. And the end attribute is now set to 0. So we get something like a little swoop line coming up like this. Shoop. Now we're going to come back to this, but I just wanted to show you that you can use trim paths to animate, and it's really easy. We did this really quickly. But I'm going to just make a new shape layer. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to make a new shape layer, but I'm going to use this little star tool here and make sure I'm not selected on anything. Otherwise, you'll be making a star shape mask. Don't want that. I'm going to put this up here on a little tilt and then go into our polystar path and just make this a little bit more organic, changing the inner and outer radius. And I want to focus on making this look kind of hand-drawn. And when I'm talking about hand-drawn, I mean like frame by frame, you're making a new drawing. So there's typically a lot of motion, and you can exaggerate that motion or not exaggerate. It depends on your taste. A lot of this will be to taste. But we're going to start by roughening those edges first. Cancel. I want to get to our effects panel, and we're going to use roughen edges. And immediately when I apply this, I'll just double click to add it. You'll start to see some kind of wiggly wobbly shapes. I want to exaggerate those as much as possible. I'm going to make them a little bit sharper. Maybe not as much as possible, but just enough to my taste. Like I said, you do this to your own taste. I may bring the scale up a little bit. I don't know. I'm kind of just messing around here. But we have something that is sort of kind of chalky, maybe a little bit hand-drawn. I'm going to increase the polystar stroke width just a tiny bit. There we go. Now we'll increase this. Okay, there we go. All right, just some minor adjustments, but nothing's happening. We don't have anything. It doesn't look like it's hand-drawn. If I hit play, there's nothing going on. It's just static. Well, your evolution will affect that. If I rotate this around, you can see that, oh, look, it is kind of moving. Well, let's let our timeline do the work with a little bit of expression. If I come into our effects, go to roughen edges, come down to our evolution, you can press, with selecting it, press Shift, Alt, Option, and Equal, and add an expression. Or if you ever wanted to know and you're already in your effects panel, you can just press Alt or Option on the stopwatch and it will take you directly to your expression panel. And I'm going to just say time. If I start typing in time, and if I just leave this alone, if I just say time, enter on the number pad, it will slowly move over time. You know how I know it's doing that? If I look up here, if I go to frame number 3, or second number 3, it is 3 degrees moved. But that's not going to do it for us. So we want to multiply this by like 1,000. So when I'm at 3, I'm at 3,000. Enter. We got a little expression. Let's see what it looks like. Now we got a little bit of boiling, a little bit of, you know, roiling and boiling. That's not exactly what we're going for, but we're getting close. We're getting closer. What we can also add to make this look, if we're going to go ahead and add this to make it look like it's adhering to drawing every frame per, well, not per second necessarily, because we're going to use posterized time. And what this does is it changes our time frame, our frame rate, to 24 seconds by default. Now we were already at 29.97, but we're at 20. Let's say we're at 24. That's fine. So it's not going to look much different here, but when we think about how animation is animated, it is usually on 2s or 3s or 4s. And what that means is if you're on 2s, there will be 1 drawing for every 2 frames. So if we change our frame rate to 12, that'll get us closer to that hand-drawn look. And we're starting to get there. It's still a little bit of boily. So we need a little bit of wiggle. We're going to add a little bit of wiggle to this. And the way I want to do that, there's a couple of things I want to do first. I think I want to add a turbulent displace. Turbulent displace. Oh, make sure I'm selected on the layer that I want it to affect. There you go. And then you can see it's already getting really wonky. And it's not really doing anything because, again, the evolution is what we need to animate. And that's way too much. I'm going to move this down to like maybe 20 something. I don't know. And I'm going to change the scale of it. And then I'm just going to cycle through to see what that looks like. Maybe still a bit too much. I'm going to scale it down a little bit. That's okay. That's not bad. And I'm going to take this evolution, and like I said before, Alter Option, click the stopwatch, and I'm just going to say time times 1,000. I don't know. I may have to back this up and see. Okay, we are wiggling, but the one thing I need to do now is make sure that my posterized time is the last thing in the stack so that we get a little bit more jumping around. And we're getting there. I think it's a little too wiggly, but it's okay. It's not terrible. We can actually add a little bit more wiggle. So the turbulent displace is as if you're drawing and you go oops a little bit too far out of the line you were trying to replicate. But there can also be drift or shake when you're drawing hand-drawn animation. And that is what we're going to do with another little expression that we're just going to add to the position. I'm pressing P, selecting our position of our shape layer, Shift, Alter, Option, equal, and then I'm going to start typing wiggle. All right, so wiggle starts to pop up. It does have a little parentheses, and it takes 2 integers to tango. We've got wiggle with frequency first, separated by a comma, and then it's amplitude. Frequency in this case, you could put like 10, 20 times a second, which is what that means. I'm going to put 10, and let's say we move it like 6 pixels, and then that should give us a little bit of wiggle up and down. And that should help a good bit. I think it does. I think we're starting to get there. And I think we've got something that will start to work for our little skater video. So I'm going to take that. I'm just going to leave this here. I'm going to turn back on our video. And remember that swoop we drew? Let's try and use it. We actually animated a little bit. Let's try and use it. So I'm going to grab everything from the star shape layer, Control C, click on the swoop, Control V, and we should have a little bitty little blip happening down here. Now we can go ahead and make it a little bit thicker so we can see it a little bit better. and the timing is slightly off. So I'm going to pull this back. This is the part where you start to massage this into the video as much as you can or want to. Now, the good thing we have, I think, that we have going for us is the fact that we've got a little bit of movement, a little bit of wiggle, and that gives us an opportunity to put this in the video without necessarily having to track everything. We can just move things around. Now, you could get tracking data for this pole and maybe lock everything off to that. Absolutely. And I would recommend it if that's something the way you want to go. But for this sake, for what we're doing today, I'm just going to add a null object and pick whip our shape layer, our little swoop, to that, and then animate the position as we need it. So I'm going to take this, add a keyframe. Let's say we move this here, and then scoop this down to the beginning of it. Maybe have to come up a little bit just to see where it is. And then all I've done is animate this, and then maybe even move it where it makes sense. Maybe that last frame is somewhere else. Let's see, can I move this? Yeah, put it over here maybe? I don't know. That's probably too far. But let's see what that looks like. We get a little swoop. Nothing grand, nothing great at the moment. But I want to say that you could use this and make it a little bit more interesting if we copy the shape layer over. All I did was take that shape layer, copy it, and then make sure your pen tool is selected. You've got more of these at your disposal that you can just start changing where they are in location. Hello. It won't let me grab it now. I don't know why. There we go. There it is. You can change the width of the stroke as well. And I'm going to make another copy of that. And I'm just kind of riffing here. This is not necessarily where I would go with this, but just to get the idea across, we've got something that looks like this. And it took like next to nothing once we started going. Now, obviously, no round of applause are needed for this. But I wanted to give you guys the tools that you could use to make this happen in any kind of video. Now let's move over to Photoshop. And no, this was not necessarily planned as an April Fool's, but we were talking about hand-drawn things, and I wanted to make sure that we were actually hand-drawing. So that brush that I gave you, I know, right? Flip the script. That brush that I gave you is for these purposes. So if you saw, I don't know if you saw the Instagram for this. Here, let me see if I can play this. I'm going to turn some layers on real quick. Let's see, are they on? I think they are on. Okay. So I'm going to scrub through this real quick. All I've done here is imported a video into Photoshop. Yes, that is a thing you can do. And I have hand framed animated this, which is what we're about to do. I'll show you how to do it. And these are the results for that. I'll go ahead and play this through, let it kind of do its thing. And all of this is really simple, and it's all forward animation where you just move forward, next frame, animate, next frame, animate. But it's all editable as well. So how to get to here? Import your video first. Then go over to your timeline by going to Window, Timeline. And if it doesn't show up, this does happen and can happen, make sure you go and reset your panels, and it should pop up. But from there, I'm going to turn this stuff off so we can make our own little ending as best as I can. To add an empty layer, just go to Layer, Video Layers, New Blank Video Layer. And man, I tell you what, this is a very simple process for something you could make look really cool if you wanted to spend the time. And I will say spend the time to do this. It's a lot of fun just getting used to it first off. But let me show you how this works. I have my brush. This is the brush that I provided. And all you do, like any other layer, you can start painting. I can erase into this. And we're going to kind of do the same thing. We're just going to make like a circle type shape and enlarge it. But all of that stuff we were talking about with like hand, wobbling, roiling frames, that's all just going to happen naturally because you're just painting on a layer in Photoshop. And then I'm already making this messy, and that's okay. That this method kind of works that way. But then I'm going to step forward in time using our little toggle, a little step forward in time button. It's a frame step, but it looks like it disappeared. I promise you it did not disappear. It is just no longer on that current frame. So for each frame, there's a new drawing that needs to be done. We can turn on onion skinning by this little menu over here, and you will be able to see a little soft, little silhouette or little ghost image of your previous frame. And we just make that larger. For this example, I'm just going to go through this. Just kind of quickly making this, but you could like write things like I did, do a grind or something like that on the grinding thing. I added some sparks, all very simple. And I'm just going to walk through this really quick. And you can go back and you can edit those frames. Like if I saw a little thing back here I didn't like, I think it was like this brush right here. I can just brush it out. Move back to the frame I am working on, current frame, add some more, next frame. And I'm just going to increase the size of this as I go. It's nothing crazy here. Just kind of add like a little shockwave look. And then keep moving forward with that. You can also take this after the fact. Very important to remember. Again, guys, it's just Photoshop. So anything you can do in Photoshop, you can do on this. I would recommend like changing up some of the colors. Like I could choose something that's not white, but white kind of stands out better on this. I'm going to keep moving along. And again, you can see why I didn't spend the whole time trying to animate, because it does take a minute. And these challenges are only so many minutes, around 24-ish, 25-ish minutes. And then at any point you can turn off onion skinning and take a look at what you've done. And that's what we're about to do right now. Let's see, go over here, turn onion skin off. Roll our playhead back. Hit the space bar. Boom. So there you go. You got a little effect. You could copy that frame and enlarge it. You could. I would recommend not. You definitely could, but then you're going to get the sort of the same situation you run into with doing that in After Effects, where it just looks like the same thing enlarged. Otherwise, just do it in After Effects and scale it up. There's no reason to move to Photoshop to do it. And you don't have to do this in Photoshop. There are numerous other programs, I'm sure, but this works well for us. And you can also render out this video once you're done with it. If you go to render video, you can change the format, anything you need. You can also render it with an alpha channel. So if you wanted to do some of this in Photoshop and then take it back into After Effects and like add multiple effects to it that way, you can, because it will render with an alpha. Let's see, what else is there about it? I think as far as, yeah, you covered that actually. Copy and paste if you want to, frames. And these layers act just like layers. And like I was mentioning earlier, you can color these frames. I've got some of the previous frames I'm going to just turn back on. And I'll zoom out here so we can see the whole thing. You can see what this looks like with our new frame on it. Let's take a look. And so you can add sound effects too. Well, you know, like a simple skadoosh, something like that. But it is really fun. It's fun to do. I highly recommend trying it out. We will have more of this texturing goodness next week. In the next challenge is going to be with textured type, and we'll actually get into some things we could have done here with textures. But that is going to do it for us today. Let me catch up on chat. If you have any questions, anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out with that, with those questions. Yeah, there's more to come. Ellie's coming up next, and I hope to see you guys real soon. Definitely we'll be back next Monday on Twitch for Roller Troll, and then right back here on Tuesday for another video challenge. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you real soon. Bye.